what's happening in Sri Lanka, would you think India is going to meet a similar fate sometime soon? Well, some in our country do believe that. Drawing a direct link with Sri Lanka, former Chief Minister of Jammu and Kashmir, Farooq Abdullah, has said that Prime Minister Modi must ensure India doesn't meet a similar fate. This is the latest in a series of comments coming in from the opposition that does nothing other than fearmonger. They have predicted doom for the economy and a dramatic downfall of the NDA Sarkar. Listen it.
देखिए, कुछ भी हो सकता है, अल्लाह रहम करे। हम तो दुआ करते हैं कि अल्लाह ताला हमें उस मुश्किल से निजात दे जो श्रीलंका में हुई है। अल्लाह करे कि हमारी हुकूमत के लोग जो हैं वो इस सिचुएशन को समझते हुए ऐसे इक़दामात उठाएं कि हम उस तरफ न जाएं।
इंडिया में तो मोदी जी का हालत भी ऐसा ही है। सब कुछ दिन के डे बाय डे ये तेल का दाम, दूसरा चीज़ का दाम बढ़ रहा। इज डूइंग नथिंग। वो जो वहाँ का जो राष्ट्रपति का जो हाल हुआ अभी श्रीलंका में, वो हाल तो मेरा ख्याल से यहाँ मोदी जी का हो जाएगा। मोदी जी का प्रधानमंत्री का वही हाल होगा।
Some point of time, situations were like India, Sinha versus Christian, Muslim, and this led to unemployment and inflation. And also Sri Lanka landed up in big debt, and that finally led to a chaos situation. So it's a warning for us.
Now here's a quick fact check for the Doomsday Brigade. India's GDP is 2.62 lakh crores US dollars. Meanwhile, Sri Lanka's GDP is just about 8,000 crore US dollars. Compare the two countries with GDP per capita or forex reserves for the year-on-year growth of the economy. The margin between the two countries is nowhere comparable, and the numbers are on your screen, ladies and gentlemen. While India's GDP stands at 7.5% growth rate, Sri Lanka's GDP is growing at 2.4%. And it's a downward spiral for the Lankan economy because of the debt trap China has laid for the island nation. Now, let me remind you, ladies and gentlemen, the protests taking place in Sri Lanka are against the Rajapaksas, the family that is to blame for the downfall of the country, a family at the center of the unending crisis. Does that ring a bell? Family-run political parties running governments is not a new phenomenon for India. For 40 years, out of the 74 years India has been independent, Gandhis were the Congress presidents, and 36 out of the 52 years Gandhis were prime ministers of this country. That Parivarvaad is what the BJP is reminding the opposition of when they draw the Lanka analogy with India. So while the opposition predicts Lanka like doom for India, they are completely turning a blind eye to what causes these have led to. So the legitimate question we are asking on the NewsHour tonight, are dynasts ignoring Lanka's lesson? That's the question, and that's the debate. Lanka dynasty ditched. That's the hashtag and the debate coming up on the other side.
You're watching the NewsHour at 9, debate number 1 on Times Now, Super Prime Time.
And joining me tonight on the NewsHour is Shehzad Poonawalla, National Spokesperson of the BJP. To my right. To my left is Tehseen Poonawalla, political analyst, supports the Congress party. Suhail Seth, author and columnist, also joins me. Dr. Anand Ranganathan, author, also on the debate. Tanveer Ahmed, national spokesperson of the JDS, present on the NewsHour tonight after a long gap. Welcome, Mr. Tanveer Ahmed, and thank you for joining NewsHour. But my first question tonight goes to Mr. Biswajit Dev, spokesperson of the Trinamool Congress. I want to ask you, Mr. Biswajit Dev, when the opposition compares India with Sri Lanka, or India hurtling towards a Sri Lanka kind of situation, do you want to pause and think about some of the reasons Sri Lanka is where it is? The debt trap is because they walked into China's hands with their eyes open. and it was a debt trap laid by China. The fact that they have a prime minister office, the president, all of them coming from the same family, including the agriculture minister, tourism minister, irrigation minister, sports minister, as well as the prime minister's chief of staff. All of them from one family, which is the Rajapaksa family. And then there is, of course, the freebie culture, where taxes were reduced, where sudden, intelligence dawned on them that they should move only to organic farming, and which is why Sri Lanka doesn't even have food grains to eat. Do you really think that India is hurtling towards a Sri Lanka kind of situation, or is this just political rhetoric? I think you're on mute. You need to unmute yourself.
Which is what most of TMC is.
There is no doubt. You see, we are struggling with an excessive inflation in the country. We can see the economic condition of the country, how the fuel prices are rising day by day, how the cooking gas, the price of the cooking gas is rising day by day, in spite of the fact that our leader Mamata Banerjee is putting in money in the bank accounts of the women. Modi ji is taking away those money when he is rising, when the price of the gas, price of the cooking gas is rising on a daily basis. That is what he is doing. And we can see the condition of the employment. There is no employment, there is no infrastructure, there is no industry. Since the last 8 years, we have seen nothing. What we have seen, today we have seen how the national emblem also has been insulted. It's an insult to the nation, it's an insult to the country, it's an insult to the constitution. This is what BJP is doing. This is what they are doing. And the country is heading towards an anarchy, I would rather say. And it is high time that the government should take steps to check the inflation, to check the high rise of the prices of the most essential commodities, and to check especially the inflation, rather than concentrating on such issues like the national emblem or spending huge amounts for the new Parliament House. The government should think about something positive, to do something positive for the people. 8 years, they have done nothing. It's only what they have done is passion. And what Mamata Banerjee did in Bengal is giving ration to the people.
Well,
Their only politics is divisive politics. They have divided people on the basis of religion. That is what they did. And they wanted to encash politically by dividing the people on the basis of religion. We can see number of incidents. I don't want to quote. I don't want to quote such individuals.
All right, you put the ball back in the court of the BJP. I'm coming to you, Suhail Seth, right after Shehzad Poonawalla. But do you want to respond to Mr. Biswajit Deb, who said that the prices, inflation rates and the divisive politics is what the BJP is given to this country?
You see, the Congress and the ecosystem recently spoke about DDLJ in their press conference. The real DDLJ is this doomsday lobby ka jhoot. What is this doomsday lobby ka jhoot? Sri Lanka economy $80 billion, GDP of India 3 trillion, Forex 2 billion of Sri Lanka, Forex for India 585 billion, exports of Sri Lanka 15 billion, exports of India more than 400 billion, inflation in Sri Lanka 32% food inflation, inflation in India 7%, and this is the time when they ran the government with UPA. It was 10% inflation 9 times between 2012 to 2014. They were part of that government. They are talking about the price rise. 400% sugar prices rose between 2004 to 14. Left and TMC were part of that government at alternative occasions. 300% rises in the oil prices, 300% rises in the pulses prices. This is the price rise they gave, and today they are talking when there are two economic world crises that is happening, Ukraine-Russia war and COVID crisis. Still the average inflation is between 7 to 7.5%, has not gone beyond that, and even United States is facing 40% year high. in inflation. But having said that, let me come to the fact of Sri Lanka.
But let me put in a rider. The numbers that you're talking about, let's talk about Sri Lanka, which is an island country this size, and India, which is a country of 135 crore people.
I got your question. When Sri Lanka is an island country of this size and India is this size, then why were the two being compared by Rahul Gandhi and by Udit Raj? Now let me come to the final point. The summation of Sri Lankan problem is family first politics, Parivaarvad above Rashtravaad. Who's doing that in Sri Lanka? Mahinda, Gotbaya, Basil, Chamal, Namal, Lalit. And who's doing it in India? Motilal, Jawaharlal, Indira, Rajiv, Sonia, Rahul, Priyanka, Rehan, Rawat. Now who's doing China first policy in Sri Lanka? We've seen in China first here, INC mindset. I need China mindset. Who has the MOU? Thirdly, freebies first. By the way, West Bengal ka debt kitna hai? Biswajit Deb, Sri Lanka's debt is 6 lakh crore and the state of West Bengal, the debt is, you know what? Take a guess, 5.6 lakh crore. Tamil Nadu, 6.6 lakh crore. Punjab, 3 lakh crore. So this freebie first, family first, corruption first, and China first policy is responsible for Sri Lankan crisis, and it may be responsible for your party crisis also. It may be responsible for your party crisis also.
First tell the nation that what the Prime Minister has done.
I'll tell you, sir. I'll tell you. Please. No, you have asked me. No, I'll tell you. You have asked me, I'll tell you. 80 crore people got free rations for last 2 years. 12 crore people got toilets for free. 3 crore people got houses. We gave 12 crore Kisan, 1.80 lakh crores in Kisan Samman Nidhi. No, I will tell you what we have done. No, very good topic. One IIP growth at 12-year high, 19.6%. Year-on-year growth in the job market, 15%. Services has grown for the last 8 years. The highest growth has been recorded. Family first is being done by you. Divide and rule is being done by you. And you are the one who plays vote bank politics. You have played vote bank politics.
Only divisive politics.
Well, 1 minute, Mr. Dev. Tehseen Poonawala. Shehzad is right. You know, if dynastic politics is what has got Sri Lanka down, why doesn't the Congress party tell Udit Raj a fact or two about dynasties in the Congress party and how everything runs on that dynasty? How many Congress presidents have been from the Gandhi Parivar? How many from others? How many prime ministers have been from the Gandhi Parivar and how many from the others? Please tell us a little bit about that as well before you compare India and Sri Lanka.
Namaskar Navika ji, thank you for having me on the show. Namaskar to all my fellow panelists and to all your viewers. They say that there are 3 types of lies. Lies, damn lies and statistics. So what Shehzad did in the studio is gave out statistics which are the worst kinds of lies, which is why he's a representative of BJP, the Bada Jhoota party. And therefore the man who starts his speech on TV saying that look, we are against freebies, then goes on to from WhatsApp University said we've given 12 crore toilets, those toilets are not functioning, we've given houses for free, we've given this free, that free, and that's the only achievement, which also are statistics that are made up. Where is the problem? No, India, sir, I did not interrupt you. Sir, I did not interrupt. Sir, I did not interrupt you. Ma'am, if you would kindly allow me to speak.
The women of this country have been empowered to go to the toilet whenever they want. They have dignity.
The toilets don't have water today. Your CAG report. Why do not put a CAG report in front of
only a man who has Rolex out of ill-gotten wealth can say the toilet is a freebie.
No, I'm not wearing a Rolex. I'm wearing an even more important watch because I don't call myself that I'm not living on a taxpayer's money. I pay my taxes. I pay my taxes.
But come on.
Why is he interrupting me? He's interrupting me because he doesn't want the viewers to hear. Please, allow me to make intellectual
Somebody can turn around and ask you a question that you've been in power till 2014, yes. Okay, 8 years ago, which was 68 years after independence of this country.
Yes.
And women still did not have toilets to go to.
That's not true. And that's not the statistic we have to debate, but that's not true. The CAG report is out there for the people, and the CAG report says that the toilet they claim is not 2 days open
every village and every household had toilets.
No, it did. No, it did not have,
it?
and neither does it have today. Please allow me to put statistics. I'm here for that debate, not to debate toilets, but open defecation is still on today. Of course I've come, and open defecation is still on. The CAG report there. Please, I would like to make an intellectual point. He's trying to disrupt so that the points don't go out. Look, India is not close to being Sri Lanka at the moment. The problem is India is on a road heading, if we don't pay attention, towards Sri Lanka. And there are certain reasons for this. A, Sri Lanka had an authoritarian government like the one we have here. A man got up one night, said there will be no fertilizer farming, there will be organic farming. Like the Prime Minister got up and said there will be demonetization, like GST. Please keep quiet. And here's the problem. India's foreign exchange reserve is currently at 585 billion. There's been a massive withdrawal recently. India's external debt due in 2022 is at $273 billion, almost 50% of this. Our Indian oil imports have doubled from $62 billion to almost $130 billion. Crude prices have risen, the rupee has got weak. Our trade deficit is an alarming 88%, and the fact that our economy is contracting for the first time in 45 years puts us in a precarious situation. Now, what happened in Sri Lanka is anyone would raise any question on the media, either they were called anti-nationals or their voices were shut down or it was deflected, like what's happening out here. We don't want that to happen in India. We don't want Prime Minister Modi to go. We want to defeat him democratically, but you must have the humility to listen and not give out damn lies on TV or statistics on TV, including about your toilet.
The forex reserves during Manmohan Singh's time?
The forex reserves were 480 billion, but
you're lying. If you're lying, you'll leave this debate. It was $250 billion.
And
it is $250 billion, and today it's 585.
What has been the debt to? Hold on. What has been the
Shehzad Poonawala, postgraduate.
Other people who are on this debate, let me make an important point.
No, but I want to tell you.
What was the foreign exchange reserves in 2014?
I want to only
please tell him and please inform him that he lied about it on national TV.
I only want to tell you one thing, that fact checkers, as you just checked out his facts, fact checkers cannot be questioned. That's the system that Mr. Tehseen Poonawala comes from. But let me go, get in Suhail Seth. Suhail Seth, are we really hurtling towards a situation like Sri Lanka? I want to ask you this because when our political leaders make such statements, people of this country would wonder, what are they not telling us? These are parliamentarians, these are people who are responsible, represented in the parliament. They may know more than us. Is it not going to lead to a spread of panic?
First, India will never become like Sri Lanka. We've got luminaries in terms of economists in our country. Biswajit, they've mentioned Mamata Banerjee. She is a luminary as far as economics and economist theories are concerned. Rahul Gandhi has shown us time and again that he's an economist of great repute and great talent. We've got economists, actually we've got more economists in India than functioning traffic lights. One economist actually takes advice from New York taxi drivers. I mean, on a serious note, it's apples and oranges. You know, the TMC is right, Biswajit is right. Modi is responsible for everything. Tomorrow, if a stationary bus hits Biswajit, he will blame Modi for it. But the reality is, don't compare Sri Lanka to India for various other reasons. Number one, we are a functioning democracy, or else Abhishek Banerjee would have been Prime Minister with Mamata Banerjee being Chief Minister. Or the Poonawala brothers, who have fought so gallantly and valiantly in the studio, would actually be running this country. But these poor chaps are in different parties. Although I have a feeling, a sneaky feeling, that they are working together so that, you know, they hedge their bets. That's a smart strategy. But also, Navika, why should politicians demean their own country? Why should people who work in politics in a country like India continuously demean India? Is that something to be proud of? Yes, Biswajit is right. If there are issues with employment, if there are issues with job growth, with economics, find a solution. We cannot be the communist Bengal Biswajit, where the communists had a problem for every solution. You're becoming exactly like that. And you're far brighter than the communists ever were. I have three things to say, and I will end with that. Number one, India is a robust, functioning democracy, which is why the might of the BJP, including their could not defeat a Mamata Banerjee. So Biswajit, you're happy? Ora to apnara to thik kore jeetlen. Number two, we have a functioning Supreme Court. We have a functioning judiciary. We have 1 minute now. Just because I've told you you've done a good job doesn't mean you start interrupting me. See, this is the problem with TMC. Give TMC an arm, they'll take the whole body. 1 minute. Arey, abar apni bolche. Ami to apnake interrupt korlam na. Bhalo kore amra to dujon Bangali. We have to talk with civility. Number three, as Navika rightly said, when you discuss India, you must discuss India with two things, with pride and solution, not false pride. Today, I don't believe that we will go the Sri Lanka way because we haven't sold our souls to China. We haven't sold the family silver to China. We haven't done deals with China as the scoundrels that the Rajapaksas did. We will not have people fleeing from our country. Yes, there'll be the occasional politician who will go on a holiday after strenuous work every 3 or 4 weeks. That's fine. He's entitled to that. But just because one politician goes abroad every 3 or 4 months or 3 or 4 weeks, that doesn't mean our politicians are fleeing. You ask Biswajit, Mamata Banerjee hasn't ever gone abroad except for a delegation to seek investment in India. So I am not at all worried. I think we're in a great place. We won't see the scenes like that. I don't think people will be even close to coming to Rashtrapati Bhavan or the Prime Minister's residence. I don't believe that we will succumb to anarchy and chaos like the Sri Lankans have done. I feel terrible for the Sri Lankan people. No country deserves the kind of leaders they've had. And I'm glad, and I will just say this finally, Biswajit, neither Mamata nor Narendra Modi stole the election. They were elected by people. Respect that. So when you cast aspersions on a prime minister or a chief minister, respect the fact that he or she came in through a well-deserved, well-earned, democratic mandate. If nothing else, respect that and nothing more.
We respect that. And the people of the country.
Now you please interrupt all the other participants. I'm done. Now you keep interrupting.
They also expect something from the Prime Minister.
But that's, that is anarchy that you are encouraging. That is anarchy that you are encouraging. Just because you finish stating your piece, you are saying anarchy is all right. It's not fair, and that's not the rule of law on this debate as well.
Which has not been done.
Well, so let me get in Tanveer Ahmed. Tanveer Ahmed, you had a broad smile on your face when Mr. Suhail said made the mention of one politician going abroad every 3 or 4 weeks. I want to ask you, why do opposition parties have to take a dig at their own country? I mean, while they may want to take digs or raise questions to the government, it's their right. But to begin to create an atmosphere of uncertainty to spread panic, is that responsible politics, Mr. Ahmed?
I totally agree with what Mr. Suhail said that India is definitely not going Sri Lankan way. Absolutely no, because India is a robust economy. It has been well crafted, drafted by hard-working Indians who have really built India with emotion, with pride. But the problem is, I have problem with Times Now's wording saying that dynasty politics. Dynasty politics never destroyed any country. If at all you see that Joseph Stalin was not a dynast, Hitler was not a dynast, neither was Mussolini. They were first-time politicians, but they ended up destroying their own countries. A bad intention of a political party which works on majoritarian rule,
are
which
you saying
works
the
to impress
Are you saying the Rajapaksas were also good for Sri Lanka? Are you saying that?
Come again, I'm sorry, I just missed you.
I said, are you saying the Rajapakshas were good for Sri Lanka? The same president, the same prime minister, the same agriculture minister, the same irrigation minister, same family controlling all top jobs. Nobody raises a question, and that's the point. That's the point that the Times Now debate is making. That dynasties have a problem.
How did Rajapakshas came to power, Navika? Navika, how did one second, how did Rajapakshas came to power? By targeting minorities, by calling to the linguistic minorities names, by calling them as terrorists. That's how they came to power. They wanted to really impress one set of power. They really came with a huge mandate. But how did they end up really ruling the Sri Lankan to success? Absolutely no. They totally destroyed it. It is not dynasty politics. Kumaraswamy has bigger responsibility because he has to fill into the shoes of Devegowda. He has to outsmart and outbeat Devegowda. People would ask him a question that your father had done this. What did you do? The person coming from dynasty politics has bigger responsibility because
Mr. Tanveer Ahmed, nobody has forgotten the visuals of Mr. Kumaraswamy who has to get into the shoes of Mr. H.D. Devegowda, covering his face with a handkerchief and going into 10 Janpath. People in this country are not going to forget that visual in a long time.
People have not forgotten what Kumaraswamy did. He People still have not forgotten what Kumaraswamy did. Did he waive farmers' loan? Yes. Was the GDP doing better in Karnataka? Absolutely fantastic. Did he bring new industries? Yes. Did he bring 1,840 schools? Yes. Did he bring 5 medical colleges, 4 engineering colleges? Yes, he did. That is what people have not forgotten about Kumaraswamy. They have seen that, your father did this, but you have done better. You have absolutely done better. That is what people of Karnataka believes about Kumaraswamy. Blaming dynastic politics is absolutely no.
Well, yes, Dr. Anand Ranganathan, a strong case is being put by Tanveer Ahmed that we are barking up the wrong tree of dynasty. It's got nothing to do with the failure of Sri Lanka, and dynasty is not the problem. Would you want to respond to Mr. Tanveer Ahmed?
Good evening, Navika. First of all, welcome back. As they say, people recover from COVID, but a tough Punjabi that you are, COVID is recovering from you. So well done.
Thank you.
There are a couple of points I want to make.
Get well wishes, best wishes, or are you taking a dig at me?
If you're above 18, you can also get a free vaccine.
No, not at all.
But thank you very much. Yes,
absolutely
good
fantastic
to be back.
To see you back. And I've just, I was complimenting your Punjabiyat. That completely thrashed COVID.
Yes, absolutely.
That's true. No, there are a couple of issues here, and I think, and I think I would like to take a couple of minutes to actually, elaborate on both, because both are important. One is dynasty, and the other is the Lankan crisis. As you say, Navika, it is a tragedy that while Sri Lankans are wishing their country was India, some Indians are wishing their country was Sri Lanka. Nations recover, haters don't. That is the thing that we need to remember. And if we look at Sri Lanka, why on earth would anyone, leave alone an economist, believe that India is going the Lankan way? You look at the debt to GDP ratio. In Sri Lanka, it was 120. But that's not all. A series of catastrophic events come together to make this so-called perfect storm, where nations go into this abyss. India went into this abyss in 1991. Our GDP to debt to GDP ratio at that point of time was 50%. And yet, our forex was not even $1 billion. Sri Lanka is at least $2 billion. We were $0.6 billion. We mortgaged our gold. We loaded it onto the ships, and it was about to reach the Bank of England. So the things were that dire. But we recovered, didn't we? The point with Lanka is that 3 or 4 things have happened at the same time. This dead assets, China financing 10% of their debt, organic farming, 3 or 4 other decisions that have led to the crisis. India is nowhere near those crises. If you look at our inflation, if you look at all the other countries, for example, France's debt to GDP ratio is 120% more than Lanka. Japan is 270%. Do you mean to say Japan is going the Lankan way? No, it doesn't happen like that. 3 or 4 decisions come together. And this is where I come to the second issue, which is the dynasty. The problem with India is that one can never be sure if India is going to go that way or not. I say right now it won't. But if you look at what we have been doing, we are also in this freebie culture, aren't we? In fact, if you look at Bengal's debt to GDP ratio, it's almost 41%. Same with Punjab. Now, every party is for freebies. But at the same time, nobody wants to improve our capacity. Nobody wants to improve our capacity to generate more and more GDP. Nobody wants reforms. Nobody wants farm reform. Nobody wants privatization. And yet, we want to keep on giving this freebie culture. What happened in Lanka is directly tied to the dynasty. Yeah, Navika, just 1 minute, because now I come to the other issue. You see, it's never about dynasty alone, but rather how deep-rooted it is. Every political party is infected with this disease. 45 current BJP MPs and more than 92 BJP MLAs have dynastic linkages. And the BJP's defense that theirs are the one-generation linkages, unlike the dendritic linkages of the Congress and regional parties, is thin, to be honest. Because even one-generation dynasty linkage can endow nepotism, preferential, non-meritorious advantage and privilege, and can and does take away the opportunity of a non-dynastic candidates. Remember, in politics, first mover advantage is everything. And 2, this is classic case of moral relativism trying to rationalize your hypocrisy. That said, Congress is special. Just 30 seconds, because The fire lit by the erstwhile Congress Zamindars Navika has singed the minds of their progeny so completely that nothing grows on that charred landscape except entitlement. Let me illustrate the damage it causes with just one example. 20 seconds. Here are the last census indices of Amethi and Raebareli, the Nehru-Gandhi dynasty bastions for 60 years. People below poverty line, 54%. Households with electricity, 14%. Vaccinated children, 16%. National deaths, 83 per thousand. For India, it was 28. This is what the dynasty reduced Amethi and Raebareli to. So you see what I'm saying?
Well,
there is a perfect storm created by three or four issues that come together and take the nation into an abyss.
And let me ask you, added to this, the question of dynasties. Just like you saw the Rajapaksas, from president, prime minister to every ministerial position to chief of staff occupied by the Rajapaksas. Who's going to ask the tough questions, whether a policy is going to be correct or not correct for the country? And same was the situation. You had a Prime Minister, Dr. Manmohan Singh, who came with an ordinance to try and protect Lalu Prasad Yadav and allow convicted people to come back to Parliament, and Rahul Gandhi sat there and tore it. And Mr. Prime Minister did not have the audacity to even question the tearing of ordinance that was passed by his entire cabinet. I want to ask you, Tehseen Poonawalla, that's what dynastic politics holds to ransom the power structure.
You are right to the point that when somebody is absolutely dictatorial or holds power without accountability, there is a problem in the economy. As we have a problem in the current Indian economy, because the Prime Minister is not held accountable, because others are raised question. Nobody from the Gandhi Nehru family has been Prime Minister for the past 40 years. They haven't been Prime Ministers. And if you are saying Rahul Gandhi is wrong for not allowing criminals and convicted people for coming to power, then maybe the BJP, where one of the ministers,
no, that's Modi, a very convenient thing to say.
I cannot talk this way because every point I'm being interrupted. Please allow me to make my point. Because when Modi was Chief Minister of Gujarat, let your viewers know, a man who was convicted continued to operate as minister, and Mr. Modi refused to sack him as Chief Minister of Gujarat, and he refused to take a position. Where was the Lokpal, the extra tea that Mr. Modi was supposed to bring in after that? So please, the extra tea that he went against the Lok Ayukta to the Supreme Court. So let's not get into Mr. Modi's virtues. What is the problem with India? Let's understand the problem. The problem where Anand is saying is that not only is our economy contracting, for our domestic consumption is only 65%, says the RBI. In the month of May this year, we've imported 101 tons of gold. If this does not tell you how precarious our economy is, nothing will tell you. This was to 13 tons last year. Figures for June is expected to be 120 tons. The government is in panic. You are talking about foreign reserves. You've had $19 billion being pulled out in the last 1 week. You have a balance of payment that could lead to a crisis if there's further panic. Then your bonds can be downgraded. You are not Navika, seeing that you're staring down a spiral, and all you're doing is you're being authoritative.
Well, that is the problem. You're being authoritative, you're staring down a spiral.
And India's foreign reserves in 2014 was 322 billion.
And Rahul Gandhi was right in tearing off the ordinance, and Dr. Manmohan Singh doesn't know anything because he passed the convicted Neta's bill.
You know, we can all debate about this, but the one factor that everybody is talking about tonight is about the Chinese debt trap that Sri Lanka has been fallen into. Rahul Gandhi on record said China offers an opportunity of hope and economic development to people, whereas Chinese MOU is signed with the Congress party. Now today they should tell us what is in that MOU. Why? 1 second, please do not interrupt. During the UPA tenure, the trade deficit increased 33 times during the UPA tenure.
If Rahul Gandhi is doing deals with China, why are you increasing the trade deficit? Today India is in a precarious situation even with China.
I just need to interrupt you for a minute because I'm being joined by Sajid Premadasa, leader of the opposition in Sri Lanka. Thank you very much, Mr. Premadasa, for joining me on the NewsHour tonight. My first question to you, there has been violence in Sri Lanka. Protesters have been on the streets, and Mr. Gotabaya Rajapaksa has run away to the Maldives. What do you believe is his final destination, and are you happy that he is left, or do you intend to somehow hold him and his family accountable for what is going on in Sri Lanka today?
I have absolutely no idea as to where he is right now, and I'm not interested in where he is. That is not my business. My business is bringing our country out of this devastated situation. That is my duty, and I will do my duty. In doing so, we will bring to book all those who have looted from the public treasury, all those who have stolen state assets, all those who have stolen the Sri Lankan people's public property. But that will be done through a transparent judicial procedure, not through the involvement of politicians. It's not our business to do that, but it is a business of authentic, independent judicial institutions to apprehend corrupt politicians and officials and repatriate monies that were stolen from the Sri Lankan people.
Well, Mr. Premadasa, do you think dynastic politics is responsible for the crisis that Sri Lanka is facing today?
The present status, as far as Sri Lanka is concerned, is a very, very sorry state. It's a dilapidated state. It's a country that is crying for some sort of growth and prosperity. All this was caused because the wrong mandate was given at the presidential polls in 2019 and in the general election polls in 2020. These corrupt, decrepit politicians did not all of a sudden appear from either Moon, Mars, Saturn, or Jupiter. They were brought into power by a mandate, by a people's mandate. So it's the wrong decisions that led to this corrupt administration ruining our motherland.
How soon do you think the economic breakdown in Sri Lanka can be brought back on its rails? In fact, Mr. Wickramasinghe has been talking about at least 4 years to bring Sri Lanka back on the right economic path. Do you have a blueprint on how this has to be done?
We are ready with the plan. We have the best team. We have the best architects of economic policy. What we need is a mandate. We need a working majority with a coherent approach to ensure that our economic plan works. And of course, we won't have short-term prosperity. We will have to go through a lot of pain, a lot of suffering. But those are the consequences of decisions that were made in 2019 and 2020. Unfortunately, that will be the reality. In order for us to return to 2019 levels, I would say it would take a minimum of 4 to 5 years.
Mr. Premadasa, I want to ask you before I let you go, do you think it is the Rajapaksas falling into the Chinese debt trap that has led to the situation that Sri Lanka is in today? Are you wary of the Chinese influence on the Sri Lankan economy?
Sri Lanka's crisis has its sources in domestic politics. You cannot blame country A, B, C, D, E, etc. The governors of this country, the rulers of this country, who had a mandate, they had a trusteeship, they were temporary custodians, guardians of this country. But they ruined this country through impractical, lunatic decision-making. They embarked on a policy of voodoo economics, and they were experimenting with the 22 million people of the country. I don't blame any other nation state other than the government that has completely brought this country into chaos, and it has brought down to the precipice of disaster.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Premadasa, for joining me on the News Hour. We are hoping Sri Lanka and its people become safe and do not lack for anything, and the anarchy is taken control of and peace returns to Sri Lanka. Thank you very much for joining me on the NewsHour tonight.